That wasn't a good one. I'm sorry.
All right,
Good morning.
we're rolling.
Episode, we're already rolling, baby.
I know.
Oh, episode 13, Shaken Not Stirred. Spencer, good morning. How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing good. Somebody's birthday.
Is it Addie's?
No, I think it's yours.
I know. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Happy birthday, man.
Only
Happy
5 is old.
birthday to you.
Please
I
don't.
don't smile because I'm gonna sing the whole thing. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to Tristan. Happy birthday to you.
I don't know why you had to add the tone in there like that, but
I was trying to get you to break. I wanted you to
you
laugh.
can't break me, son. I carry the boats.
Okay.
What's going on? What's new?
Not much. I'm in San Diego right now until Monday evening. Started just in case anybody can't tell, yes, we are matching. Um,
Rocking the
I
new
think,
half-face blades,
yeah,
Origin.
Origin collab,
Yeah,
Jocko, Beto. And anyways, yeah, I love this thing. I wear it every day in the morning.
dude, it's so comfortable.
I know.
I usually just throw it on in the morning. So when you text and you're like, "Hey, I'm just wearing my hoodie," I was like, "Perfect, casual Friday."
Yeah.
Still got to
I
throw
know.
my
I always put this on in the morning because I now sleep with like my window open, so it gets pretty cold in the
okay.
morning.
Yeah.
It's just comfortable.
Well, especially out there, it gets really cold at night and in the
Yeah.
morning. So,
Yep.
well,
But
short life update. Spencer and I are obviously both doing well. We're both here. We're both healthy.
yep.
Um, Spencer started the solar sales job and has so far been killing it. I think it's only been a week, and you've closed a couple deals now, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. So like I shadowed for a couple days, so I wasn't really like official, but then on Tuesday was like my actual start date. So
Hmm.
we got to gather some things from like prospects, excuse me, prospects, and then once those are like uploaded into our portal, that kind of starts your clock. So you have 60 days to do 8 installs, and yeah, no, started off really strong and did two on my what would that be? Second or third day.
Okay.
So that was awesome. And the record's 18. So my target is 25,
18 in the first
60 days.
60 days.
Yeah. And you want to know the funny story? So the guy that did that came in, did 18 under 60 days, put like 90 grand in his pocket cash, and
And
then
then
just
never did it
left.
again. Yeah.
Just left. Went to Tennessee to become a stand up comedian.
What?
Just booked it. Yep.
That's crazy. Good for
Isn't that
him.
weird?
Hope he's doing well.
So that's not my plan, but
We know
you
it's not.
know, yeah. So it's
You
fun
never
though. I
know.
mean, it's
What if you make your 25 sales and then you're like, you know what? I'm gonna go be a stand-up comedian in Austin, Texas.
yeah, that's definitely not for me. But no, yeah. The goal is to knock it out of the park, and then, as you know, it's all about momentum. So like, I'm really
Sure.
trying to hone in and get the ball rolling, and then just kind of you know, build it from there.
Yeah.
So
We don't have to go in depth on it, but I also think you're going about it very strategically, which is good. So,
yeah, no, definitely am. And speaking with one of my mentors last night, who you know who that would be, and he was telling me, which I really needed to hear because so when I went into we have meetings Tuesdays and Thursdays,
hmm.
and when I did the two sales, like we've got this big chat with like I don't know, it's probably 60, 70 people in it from our office, um, and there's tons of communication in there, and they always say like just post, post, post.
Yeah.
It's like I did that, and everybody was like freaking out, and the next day, which is like my third day, there's like a lot of like people coming up to me asking me for advice. And it's like I'm like, dude, it's my freaking third day.
Right.
But
Yeah, yeah. For
no,
advice.
but he told me he was like, you got to remember you're in a, I mean, you're in a sales environment.
Yeah.
and you compete with everybody. And he
Hmm.
goes, just play the hot dumb bimbo, like who
Yep.
has no idea why people are so attracted to her.
Right.
And he was like, yeah, he says it's critical. Like until, one day when you're in a top leadership position, which blows my mind, but they're like talking about that with me. And I'm just like, dude, I gotta get first, the first 60 days first. But, um, yeah, no, he was like, until you're in that position and you're a leader where, you are the one coaching and teaching and stuff. He's like, don't give anything. Don't give anything away. You don't know why you're doing so good. You're just out there knocking on doors, and that's it.
For sure.
So that was really cool. That was very good to hear because I like when I find out something works or if I like something, like I am a promoter.
Hmm.
Jocko Fuel, like we love it, but like I mean, I push it so hard with people, but I love it, and it's like I want them to love it too.
Yeah.
So it's kind of hard for me, but it was good advice and definitely needed to hear it.
Yeah. Totally
You
get it.
know,
It's right on the money.
so
All right.
yeah, so
I'm gonna run around the corner really quick. Why don't you kick off and start talking about what our topic is today?
yeah, sure,
Be right back.
got it. Yeah, so the topic really that we wanted to discuss is basically the topic of money, and we're obviously pretty fresh out of college. It's not like it's been 5 years. I think we're right around or a little over, maybe like a couple months, but about 2 years since we're out of college, and it's pretty funny because a lot of people they go into some form of wealth management, right? People try and gravitate towards the money. And in my opinion, they typically don't know like the actual process of getting to the point where you build a serious portfolio of clients. Like if you're in that space. And I'm just saying, Tristan, like, when we graduate, I don't know if you have, I know I've gotten probably at least 5 to 7 calls from people we went to school with saying,
Oh yeah.
hey man, do you have a wealth manager, anything like that?
Hmm.
And that's awesome. I mean, they're doing what they should do, but it's just kind of funny because I've received a lot of those calls. Um, and I've also had quite a few people like our age who are out there working and they're doing great. Just ask, you know, like how do you, not necessarily how I would manage my money, but maybe like just suggestions in general.
Yeah.
And everybody wants to get into real estate because the Grant Cardones of the world, right?
Hmm.
And all these other guys, and I'm not bashing that at all. It's a phenomenal. I mean, great deals of wealth have been made
No
from
matter
real
what
estate.
you're gonna get into, please be professional. That's all I'm gonna say.
Be professional,
We
and
both had
I
that
mean,
one guy reach out to us on LinkedIn. We went to
oh my
college
gosh,
together.
yes,
I sent him a
yeah,
long message. I think you did too. And I was just
yeah,
like,
I did,
I think you were probably a little more brutal than I was, but I was just like, dude, if
yeah,
you're gonna reach out to people, like clean up the way you're doing it, you know?
yeah, yeah. So, anyways, I've had a couple people ask, and obviously, real estate is one of those things that people want to get into, right?
Hmm.
Like for example, I mean, probably the biggest name that like most people would know is like a Grant Cardone
Yeah,
because he's so out there with it.
yeah.
But that doesn't
Marco,
happen
Graham
overnight.
Stephan.
What was
Graham
that?
Graham Stephan's a big name too.
Yeah.
He's the YouTuber.
Yeah. But I mean, that stuff doesn't happen overnight.
No.
And a lot of people don't know how to evaluate the market in general, like the financial markets, the real estate market. And they think that, no matter what time of year it is and where we are in the financial cycle, economic cycle, like you can just go buy anything you want. And
Yeah.
it's like, no, there's a lot more to it. Certainly can be done, but you got to know what you're doing. So the way that we have kind of split it up is really into like four components, for buckets basically. One of which would be real estate. Second is cash, like holding cash. Third is stocks. Let's say like stocks and bonds. And the fourth, which I think is very interesting and rarely talked about, is alternative assets.
Hmm.
So alternative assets could be, I have two like specific examples, but let's say like a Picasso painting, right?
Yeah.
Something like that. But that's completely untouchable for the common person,
Right.
at least for the most part. Like the common person is not going to go buy a Picasso painting or Banksy or whatever these are.
Yeah.
But there are options to buy into those paintings. And there are companies out there that treat it just like a painting was, um, a stock where everybody can buy into it at different levels.
Yeah.
So there are different companies out there that do that, and they actually make these things accessible. The other example that comes to mind is, we talked about this, but Lewis Hamilton's, was it like his first? I don't know what it was, but it was his first F1 car, or at least an F1 car that maybe he won a championship
I think
in.
it was the last one that he won a championship with, and it would have been like 2020 or 2019.
Yeah, and they're auctioning that off.
Yeah.
So, like, to me, I mean, if you had the
Which
liquid cash
10 years from
available,
now, that's priceless. Like
well, that's my
you
point. So, like,
you
if
have
you
that
had,
only one, so you set the price for it. The
yeah,
demand's there. You set the price for it, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that's something that, you're not going to go drive around. That's a car you're buying, but that's not the kind of car you're going to go drive around in. Like, I
Yeah.
don't think I wouldn't even take it out.
Mm-mm.
Um, but that's just me. But, that's another example. The other, big example, I have two others, are, sports teams. Like, we talk about them all the time,
Mhm.
but, Patrick Bet-David, like, he's now a minority owner of the New York Yankees, the greatest
Oh, is he
sports
really?
franchise.
That's
Oh,
awesome
dude.
for him.
Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. And that was like his dream since he was 5. And now he's an actual owner of the Yankees,
That's huge.
like on a pretty substantial level too, not like some small,
Yeah.
but yeah, that. And, the other kind of crazy one is like sports cards, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, people have made just ridiculous sums of money.
It's not even,
Um,
it doesn't even have to be like sports cards. I've seen people with like doing trading Pokemon cards and stuff like
yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah.
So those are kind of the four components we want to talk about.
If we
So yeah, I
want,
mean,
I
go
think we
ahead.
both understand real estate pretty well. I mean, your family has a background
Yeah.
in it. You yourself have a background in it. I technically work in it. If we want, we can kind of kick it off with that. But I do want to say, and this is something I didn't figure out until I started working in the industry. You can't just say like I want to work in real estate or I want to do real estate because it's so broad. There's a million things you can do in real estate. Um, so I get we're talking about investing specifically here, but even investing, it's like, okay, how do you want to invest? Um, you know, do you want to do residential? Do you want to do commercial?
Hmm.
Um, there's 100 different ways to go about it. Um, do you want to leverage debt and use a bank, or are you going to pay cash? What's your financial situation? How are you going to work that out? But you also have to calculate, okay, is it worth leveraging or is it worth paying the cash? So I think each and every person obviously has to do their due diligence. Um, I'm sure I was looking at buying a place in La Quinta and just Airbnbing it out, and unfortunately, it didn't end up happening.
Hmm.
Hold off for a little bit, and from what I'm seeing, I feel like prices are coming down a little. So I'm gonna revisit that later. But I think you have to know when the right time to pull the trigger is, but also you have to pull the trigger when that
Yeah.
time comes. Because a lot of people will get frozen and they're like, "Oh, I gotta hold off, I gotta hold off, I gotta hold off," and then boom, it's like, all right, it's too late.
Yeah. 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 So I mean, you're in like real estate development, so you
Development.
guys are not necessarily going out and acquiring these properties. Is that
No,
correct?
no, we're not at all.
So what do you think is more enticing to you, more attractive between development and going out and actually buying assets?
So me personally, if I had to go start my own company today, I would probably do a mixture of both. So I would have, um, like a lot of different companies have different lines of business, right? They have multiple lines of business under what they do in the industry. I would set it up to where I'd be doing probably something similar to like project management, construction management, development side, and then also have like an asset portfolio building side. And the nice thing about that is if you like we've spoke about, you brought it up once. I don't know if we talked about it on the pod or not, but you're like, okay, you could purchase an electrical trade contractor, a plumbing contractor, and an HVAC contractor, and then you can go out and purchase properties and just hire your own team to
Yeah, you
work on the
just
properties. You're essentially paying yourself in a way, right? You're making yourself work. Um, it would essentially be the same thing. It's like, okay, if I
Mhm.
went and had one side that's doing construction management, and then I had another side that's, buying up properties and renovating them, um, maybe even demoing them and building offices and whatnot, that side can hire the other side to do the work,
Mhm.
which that's not what we do now. What we do now is we just assist whoever wants the office building, whoever already has the land, right?
Mhm.
We just develop it for them. So, me personally, I'm I'm very much a fan of both sides of that work. So it's hard to say. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
No, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, no, it does. Um, yeah, I mean, I think in general, so like if we just use kind of where we are today for an example, a lot of people our age don't have, a ton of cash on hand.
Hmm.
And I think just most people end up do spending their money, or they're in an apartment that, maybe by themselves, and
Yeah.
apartment costs are just huge right now. I mean,
It's
it's
ridiculous.
crazy. Like down the street where I'm right now, I mean, you get like a nice one bedroom, not like, I mean, a nice one too, right? So it's a nice one bedroom, but I mean, you're gonna pay 38 to 3,900 a month. Um, and I mean, that's a lot of money. So it's not like a lot of people have, much cash laying around.
Yeah.
But
I think
yeah,
I was just gonna say a studio apartment at our place. You've been to our place. It's very nice, but it's like $3,500 for a studio apartment. You don't even have a bedroom,
yeah,
technically.
yeah,
It's absurd.
yeah. So, but I think if you look at kind of where we are like economically right now,
Hmm.
um, I personally, so like one of my favorite quotes is Warren Buffett said, or somebody asked him, you know, what gets you up in the morning? Like how, what makes you do this?
Yeah.
He goes, well, what gets me up is knowing that I have, $136 billion of cash in the bank.
Yeah.
I think that is just such a
That's such a
boss.
Buffett thing to say.
It is so funny. But no, it's true though. I think, him and a lot of other, of these ultra wealthy, not just ultra wealthy, but investors in general, they are sitting on a lot of cash. And people will
Yeah.
say, what about inflation and the value of the dollar? And it's like, that's all fine. But at the end of the day, you do buy things with cash.
Hmm.
And a lot of people think, there's political implications to kind of where we are right now and where we're going, and then just the market in general. A lot of these guys that do sit on cash, they basically pray, and I don't blame them at all. I mean, frankly, I would do the exact same thing, but they kind of pray for a down market
Right.
because it
Buy
creates
everything for pennies
huge
on a dollar.
it creates huge buying opportunities, and most people can't go out and you know and do that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean that's a big thing for me. Like for me, if I did, and it's all hypotheticals, but if I did have serious money like in available basically,
Yeah.
I especially right now, like I mean, because I know what I do, like I would definitely hold most of that in cash.
For sure.
I just would.
Cash
Um,
cash is king, right?
yeah, like I mean, I definitely would. Um, but I do think that there's a lot of really interesting alternatives. I mean, I think the stock market in general, especially like if you're in like an index fund, like the SP 500, something like that. I mean,
Hmm.
that historically has performed very well,
Yeah.
right? Like it's a safe bet, and there's
Right.
nothing wrong with it. Um,
If we're
it all
gonna
just comes down
Yeah.
to risk appetite.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what it comes down to. It's like for me, I invest very you could consider it very risky. I have pretty much almost everything in Tesla stock. At least
Hmm.
all my personal funds that I've, invested on my own. I do have a Roth IRA and a 401k that I pay a little
Yeah.
bit into, but Um, when I started doing stocks when we were in college,
Mm-hmm.
and I feel like I understand it very well. Not enough to, be a financial advisor or anything like that, but when I first got started, I had I kind of what we would say drink the Kool-Aid. You know what I mean? I was like, just
Yeah.
like, okay, yeah, I need to have a diverse portfolio of four companies in each sector and whatnot. And then I watched an interview with Buffett, and he said, if you want a diverse portfolio, all you should do is put your money in the S&P 500.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, on the contrary, if you want to make money in stocks and you want to build wealth through stocks, then you need to find five companies that you read their 10K reports, you follow the companies, you keep up with them, you understand them, and you like what their mission is, right?
Mm-hmm.
He said, you find those five companies, and he said, it takes time. You're not going to find them in a day, in a week, 2 weeks, a month, whatever. Because you find those five companies and you have to, your conviction has to be dead set on what is this going to be in 10, 15 years. Tesla is one of those for me. I think they're extremely undervalued for what they are capable of and what they're going to do in the future.
Yeah, I'd say there are very few companies, if any, that I would put most of my eggs in one
Yeah,
basket.
right.
But Tesla obviously is like one of those. Like I can't really imagine a scenario where it takes a significant downturn or
Yeah.
goes backwards. Like
I
I
mean, even
just
if this last, couple weeks, it dropped 25% or something ridiculous like that.
yep,
But
did see
what
that.
I bought more. It's
Right.
exactly like you said. It's like I'm not sitting on cash like Buffett, but I do set some aside in case something like that happens. So then I'm like, okay, perfect buying opportunity. Get the stocks for
Hmm.
cheaper.
Hmm.
Then you just send it and, hold
Yeah.
on and hope for the best. But realistically, 10, 15 years from now, Tesla's going to be it. Like if there's any company in the world today, I'm not saying tomorrow or a year from now because we don't know what's going to come up. But if you had to choose one company today that's going to hit a $10 trillion market cap, who else would it be?
No one.
Yeah, I mean, Microsoft's at 2.5 trillion. I think Apple's at somewhere
Hmm.
near that 2.5, 3 trillion. But
I'll look up
not
that.
they're not really doing anything else to set themselves apart from every other business on the planet.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, yeah, they
Yeah.
make the devices that we're using right now, but
So Apple has a $2.7 trillion market cap, and then
there you
I'm
go.
gonna look something else. I think they have a ridiculous number. Hold on, Apple market.
Outstanding shares.
No,
Uh, but while you look that up, I would say my personal advice for investing is if you want to build wealth, do I'm not going to sit here and say do what Buffett said, but like do your research, find companies that you believe in, find companies that you want to support and that you believe are going to do great things over the next decade. And I'm not saying put all your eggs in just that one company, but throw some money at it, see where it goes.
hmm
If you're our age, if I lost all that money tomorrow, if the stock market completely tanked and my stock portfolio went to $0, it doesn't change a thing for me. It's
yeah.
all sitting in stocks anyways. I'm still making money that I can pay my rent. I'm still making money that I can go eat. You know what I mean? It's like
Hmm.
this is all for way down the road.
Yeah.
That
I'm
being
just looking
said,
up. Oh,
I
go ahead.
was gonna say that being said, there might come a point where, if I when the time comes I start my business and whatnot, I'm probably gonna have to sell some of those stocks to have some cash on hand. But um, I also save on the side and I'm gonna try to avoid having to do that. But
Yeah. So this is what I was looking up. Apple's market share in the US is 58%,
okay,
which is huge.
extremely high. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, yeah, interesting. But anyways, yeah, no, I agree. And the hardest, I think the hardest decisions for people to make is if you are not in the stock market, in the market were to crash, then it's inherently a lot harder for people to deploy capital
Mhm.
because it's like, okay, market is crashed and I need to retract because
Yeah.
I need to save. But I mean, logically, we know that that's probably the best time to get in
Yep.
just based on price of different assets. But
Yeah.
then if you're in the stock market and the market crashes, most people want out because they're like, I have to have
Like I'm
cash and
bleeding money. Yeah.
I'm going to get it from somewhere. But, you know, I've seen people very close to me that, you know, they've been in for 30 years and they went through 2008 and they went through all these other, you know, extreme down markets
Hmm.
and never got out.
Nope.
And that's tripled and quadrupled in size over time.
Yeah.
So, um, you know, but again, then it comes down to balance, right? Because you can say, oh, well, I'll put 75, you know, percent of my money in there. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, well, if it does crash, like, what are you going to just live on, like, you know, live on the street? It's like, no, you gotta, there's a, you know, there's a balance there, but
Yeah. And that comes with like planning and budgeting as well. You know what I mean?
yeah.
Because you got to have a rainy day fund is normally what they call it, right? You
Hmm.
got to have some money on the side where it's like, okay, if something really bad happens, I need like 2 to 3 months to be covered. You know what I mean? And that's, let's just say, rent and food. What realistically, what else do you need? Rent. If you can make rent and food, you can figure everything else out, right?
Yeah,
Um,
no, absolutely.
so
Um,
that's generally my rule of thumb. I would highly advise anyone if they want to get in stocks to use Robinhood. I think they're great. The UI is really good, and I pay $5 a month for Robinhood Gold, and you get a 4.9% interest on whatever cash you have sitting in there. So if it's not in stocks and I just deposit cash in there, I'm getting paid 4.9% interest. It's great. And if you put enough in there, it's
yeah.
you're gonna make $20 a month,
Hmm.
and it's gonna be, you're making $15 a month, and you're paying five towards Robinhood Gold, and there's a bunch of other features and stuff, obviously, but
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, a lot of companies doing super well making these things accessible.
hmm
Um,
which is so
so
cool.
yeah, no, it is
Like
super cool.
I couldn't imagine what it was like in the 90s or early 2000s before you could just go on and be your own broker on your phone.
Hmm.
Back in back in the day, it's like you had to call your broker and say, "Hey, I need you to execute 10,000 shares of blank for me." You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's crazy to think about,
yeah,
and how easy it is to access that kind of stuff now.
yeah. No, absolutely. Um, yeah. So yeah, I mean that's kind of my position on, you know, being like in the stock market. I mean, obviously it's a proven system. It's not, you know, I don't want to say that any form of like an alternative asset, you know, like that we've talked about is less proven because
Yeah.
you can't say that, but it's just less common
Hmm.
because historically it has been less accessible to most people.
Right.
And the stock market is I mean, generally accessible to anyone.
Hmm.
But I mean, for example, so like going back to the alternative asset thing. So I wanted to mention this. Masterworks. You guys can look that up. Masterworks is your
Is
ability.
that
Think of it as like
WORKS, like regular?
not Masterworks,
Yeah.
and it's your way of being able to invest in blue chip art. Like it's,
Hmm.
you know, the top pieces of art in the world essentially, and you buy into it just as you would buy into a stock. I personally, full disclosure, I have not done this, but I have heard quite a few people who have. Um, and apparently it's pretty awesome. So there's almost a million members. There's got
Masterworks.
yeah, Masterworks. They've got almost $1 billion under management, assets under management.
And it's all like fine art.
Yeah,
Wow.
344 pieces of art purchased.
Wow.
So here we go. Watch this. So net annualized track records. So these are annualized net returns. So Banksy, 32%. George Condo, 39, call it 40%. Let's see what other names we might know. Andy Warhol,
Mm,
4%. I think that's one single
that's
thing.
crazy.
Andy
Check this
Warhol,
out.
10%.
Since we're talking about
Oh,
art right now, I went to the Getty Museum a couple weekends ago
uh-huh.
and saw my first in person. This is a Van Gogh painting.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
In the desert, they had a Van Gogh museum that they popped up at the polo fields, and it
Okay.
was just ridiculous. Do you
Really?
know his story?
I feel like I do, but you're gonna have to remind me.
Dude, it is crazy. So, I mean, he kind of went crazy. He lived a very sad life.
Yeah. I remember, I think we read about him in one of my classes growing up. I used to be, not not used to be. I am a big history buff. I love history.
Yeah.
Um, but Van Gogh specifically, I don't really recall. But the Renaissance was probably one of the best eras by far. I don't know.
All right.
When was Van Gogh around?
So
1800s?
here, I'll read this. So it's just like three short paragraphs. So it says Van Gogh was born in March 30, 1853, in the Netherlands. He came from a family with a strong art connection, but his early years were far from the image of tormented artist who he would later become. He worked as an art dealer and as a preacher, and his initial attempts at a career were largely unsuccessful. Yeah, that was pretty mind blowing. I mean, he just tried and tried and tried and tried and tried. Everything was unsuccessful. In his late 20s, he decided to pursue a career as an artist. Van Gogh's life is characterized by relentless pursuit of his artistic vision, which often led to financial hardship and personal turmoil.
Hmm.
Moved frequently, searching for inspiration, but heavily struggled with mental illness. Van Gogh's art was heavily influenced by the post Impressionist movement, and he produced some of the most iconic work during the last few years of his life. His vibrant and emotionally charged paintings, such as A Starry Night and Sunflowers. Is that what you just showed? Sunflowers?
No.
Okay.
That was Iris's.
Hmm. Are now celebrated worldwide. Despite his talent, Van Gogh struggled with mental illness and emotional instability. He famously cut off part of his ear during a breakdown
Remember
and
that.
spent a lot of time in mental institutions. Tragically, he died by suicide in France at the age of 37. While Van Gogh's life was marked with struggles and obscurity, his work would go on to have a profound and lasting impact in the world of art. Today's paintings are considered some of the most valuable and celebrated art in the world, and he's regarded blah 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 blah. So yeah, crazy. But one of my favorite like little things that Conor McGregor has said is he's like, I've lost my mind to this game, like Van Gogh. I can't remember exactly what he said, but it's so awesome. But no, he did. Van Gogh, pretty interesting story. But
It's very
um,
surprising, or not surprising. It's pretty crazy how powerful art is.
yeah.
All right. I've lost my mind to this game like Vincent van Gogh. He dedicated his life to his art and lost his mind in the process. That's happened to me. But fuck it. When that gold belt is around my waist, when my mother has a big mansion, when my girlfriend has a car for every day of the week, when my kids have everything they've ever wanted, then it will pay. Then I'm happy I lost my mind. That's my
Oh,
comment.
give me chills.
I know I did too.
Love that. Yeah.
It's cool to see that like he did that. He did exactly what he said he was gonna do. You know what I mean? It's so awesome.
Mystic Mac. Yeah, he did. He did. He absolutely did. And he crushed it like nobody else has.
Nope. Um,
So, yeah, go ahead.
what would you, I guess, I'm trying to think of like a scenario.
For what?
Like if you had, say, $100,000 cash right now,
Yeah.
how would you invest it? You like your own personal, not not to give advice and say, oh, you should do this, you should do that. What would you do?
Um, hmm.
It's a tough question, I know. I just hit you with it out of the blue.
Well, because I'm trying to use like what I'm kind of where I am right now. So,
Hmm. That's the other thing
um,
we talked about is investing in businesses too. Like, I guess that
yeah,
would
I mean
kind of be a
that's
bit of
obviously like kind of
a-
my preferred way of doing it, just because. So like when all these other big businesses that are in the stock market take a major hit and they're having to lay off people,
Mhm.
some of the most thriving companies. So like if we look at the world of private equity, where private equity buys companies, right? That's what they
Yeah.
do. And so like Ronin Healthcare, obviously on a significantly smaller level, that's the intent, is to buy companies and build a portfolio of companies and
Right.
operate those. So private equity on a large scale has like pretty much slowed down over the past couple years, but entrepreneurs and companies buying more in the SMB, so small to medium sized business space, has just gone like this, and it
Yeah.
hasn't slowed down.
Hmm.
And like never, ever, ever before, the access to capital for businesses that you can buy under 10 million bucks
Yeah.
is, I'm not going to say it's easy, but it is as close to easy as you could possibly get with the SBA, Small Business Administration.
Hmm.
Um, and I mean, you as an entrepreneur could literally go out and buy a business for 1 million to 2 million bucks and only put 5 grand down.
Yeah.
And that's a real thing. Like I've seen it in real time. We were we were going to buy this business in Arizona, and I got approved. I got approval from the bank, and I was putting nothing down. I did have an investor, obviously, but we were only putting down like 10%.
Right.
And most, big commercial banks where you go buy, big company,
Oh,
a
you're
lot
getting
of
like
times they want you
20,
to put
30,
down a
40%.
yeah, a lot of times they want to put they want you to put down a larger amount.
Yeah.
Just so everybody knows this, you don't have to do that. There are ways, where you would maybe buy, you could buy 60% of a company,
Hmm.
which means that theoretically the bank is only lending 60%, right?
Yeah.
So if they wanted you to bring 40%, which is way too high, 40% to the table to buy 100% of it, what's the difference when you only buy 60%? You see, because they're lending the exact same
Right.
amount, and instead of you putting money down, it's the seller who knows the business way better than you. So they're
Hmm.
basically saying, "Hey, I'm going to keep 40% of my money in my business with you guys because I know my business better than you. I have faith that it's going to continue to perform, and I have
Yeah.
faith that you guys are going to do something good with it." So it's even stronger of an impression to whatever the financial institution is to buy, that much. But no, I mean, I'm the biggest fan of um, buying, kind of in the small to medium sized business
Yeah.
space. I mean, HVAC companies, the basics, like a larger landscape business, not just a guy with a truck, but
Yeah.
landscape businesses, plumbing,
And
things.
the sorry to cut you off, but working for yourself too. It's like owning businesses like that you know pay you enough that you don't have to work an outside
Yeah,
job. It's probably one of the most beautiful things about America.
yeah,
The,
yeah. I
the
mean, it's
opportunity here is absolutely ridiculous, and you don't get it anywhere else.
yeah. I
And
mean, if you look at a traditional startup, the failure rate is like in the 80s or 90s or
yeah,
something like that. And when you go buy a business, it technically is not a startup, because on day one, when you as the entrepreneur produce money,
hmm,
you're producing money from a business that's been in business for 5, 10, 15, 30, 40 years.
right,
So it can't be considered a startup. It's just a new person in there running it.
acquisition,
That's
yeah,
that's really
exactly.
it. But the American dream of entrepreneurship is more accessible than it ever has been.
Hmm.
And again, the SBA, and there's all kinds of other stuff we don't need to get into details about, but like it is more accessible, and it's way more accessible than anybody would think. And the
Hmm.
only way you'd know that is like if you've kind of been in those shoes, and you've experienced that. But it's the real deal. I mean, there are guys who graduate, they go into investment banking for a year or whatever, so they technically basically have like no experience, and they go buy a company for 3 million bucks, and they're 23, 24 years old,
Yep.
and that business makes 600 to 800 grand
A
in
year.
net, net profit at the end of the year, and you own 100 or 80% of that business, and
Yeah.
you keep, I'm just taught, you keep 200 in the business and put 600 in your pocket at the end of the year plus a salary. Like, where else can you do that?
Right.
So
I don't think people
um,
understand the access to capital we have. It's
yeah.
I think people think it's so hard to find and make money because they look at it as in like, okay, I do so much at my job right now and I get paid. I don't want to say so little because I think people get a good amount of money. Obviously, we're in a tight spot right now economically, but like I put in all this work, 12 hours a day, and I only make X amount a year, right? And then I think they're like, if I want to make a million, I need to do this many hours a day. And there's only 24 hours in a day. I can't do 60-hour days.
Mhm.
Um, I think they look at it that way and not in a way of um, like an even further alternative investment or asset is like investing in yourself, right? So
Yeah.
if you create something, service, product, whatever it is, if it makes sense enough to somebody, they'll give you the money for it.
Mhm.
Finding money is not a problem.
Yeah, it's
People
true.
have money. People want to invest money. Like again, going back to what you said earlier, with the more wealthy people sitting on cash, they, I would argue, most of them, if they had it their way, would not want to sit on cash. Obviously,
Yeah.
once you get to the older guys, they're just trying to preserve money for the most part and not so much make money.
Mhm.
Obviously, depending on who it is, like Buffett's clearly still slinging it and making money. He's hustling.
Yep.
Um, but a lot of them are more worried about preserving money and not making money. So you can find those people that are gonna throw, "Oh, I've got 10 grand I can throw. Here's 10 grand." You know what I mean? If it goes to 100, it goes to 100. If it goes to a million, it goes to a million. If it stays at
Mhm.
10, it's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
There's plenty of people like that out there that I don't want to say you could take advantage of, but that's what you're doing. That you have to leverage their money
Yeah.
in order to, make your idea come to fruition.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And but I mean, let's be real about, if you were to go buy a business, I mean, it's not all sunshine and rainbows,
No,
because
absolutely.
yes, you now own a company, you're now the CEO, you now make a bunch of money, but you also take on all the risk,
Hmm.
right? Where if you were working for somebody else, you effectively have no risk.
Right.
That's all on the person who owns the company. So
Yeah.
you got to take your pick though. And some people, don't want to have that risk, and they really can't handle it emotionally. And it's
Mhm.
very, very difficult. It's very hard. My first experience at it, full disclosure, um, was terrible. I mean, it was really, really bad. It was a total nightmare. I had never gone through that before. My
Yeah.
takeaway was we bought way too small. The company that we bought, it was too small. The guy who was going to run it was just a blatant liar, and hid a lot of things from us. So I mean, there's a lot of lessons that came from that. Um, but one of the lessons that, in the mix of all of that, did not come from it was because the people's tendency is to get in the business and try and control everything. But a lot of times that's very, very counterintuitive, because you just don't
Mhm.
know everything. And there should be something that you're really good at. It doesn't have to be anything specific, but there should be something. Like, if you could totally be good at really, really influencing a super positive culture. Like, you're very good at it.
Yep.
Well, then that's what you should focus on. You shouldn't, in my opinion, your background's not in finance.
Hmm.
Get a good understanding of it,
Right.
but don't go spend most of your time trying to be that person, because there's somebody out there who's already got 15 years of experience in that area more than you. Why would you go spend money and time, most importantly time, trying to be like them?
Yeah.
It just doesn't make sense. So focus on what you're doing. But the point is, you got to learn to delegate. And
Mhm.
a lot of people really try and put handcuffs on the whole business and everybody in there. And
It just
that's just not
strangles it,
the,
keeps it from from growing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's not the solution. Like I have a family friend right now. He just bought a coffee shop, and he also has a salon, like two of them, two different locations. And he's getting to the coffee shop at 2:30 in the morning every day to do all the baking.
Yeah.
Um, he shows up to close it down every day. So he goes 2:30 to like 5:30, leaves, does the salon at 5 p.m., leaves, shuts down the shop, back to the salon. So like it just doesn't make it's just super inefficient.
Right.
He was like, I think this has aged me and I've only done this for like 6 months and I'm like, I'm feeling miserable. And it's like, why do you have to go close down the shop?
Right.
Why do you have to do the bake? Like it just doesn't, people just I don't know. And my last point here is, you have to understand your risk appetite.
Mhm.
For me, it's I want to play to win, not to play not to lose.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not in that stage of my life. Maybe later I will be, but a lot of older guys and women, they play not to lose because they want to preserve wealth.
Right.
So but some people just don't ever get comfortable with that, and that's fine. There's just a trade-off.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's a good comparison. I like that.
Yeah. So,
Playing to win.
yeah. And then, on the real estate side, because I just feel like this is probably the most common thing that people want to get into.
Hmm.
And it's obviously a proven, I mean, I feel like most people you talk to that seem like pretty successful, if they don't have, just some high paying, high salary, like tech job, it's probably from real estate. Like
Yeah.
most people do say that. And it's a great proven way to go. Um, but just like, the other things we've talked about, I mean, I think you do have to have a pretty good understanding. You got to know, you got to be able to see the opportunity in a property, you
For sure.
know. Um,
Yeah. It has to make sense. You can't just go and grab a random address and say, "Oh, you know what? I can afford this. Oh, this will be a great Airbnb." It's like, says who? Who's, you know,
mhm.
market there? Maybe. Is that house nice enough that it's going to Airbnb, or is it nice enough that it's going to rent out for 4 grand a month? I get what you're saying. Like, you have to, people have to do their due diligence.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah. And then the other thing is like the other way to kind of talk about the business and the real estate buying way of going about investing is, like I said, there is such a thing as buying too small.
Hmm.
And most people say, well, yeah, but you do want to start off like attainable, right? So you don't have to go, get a ton of money and maybe you only have a certain amount of money. But
Yeah.
the reality is sometimes when you go buy a triplex or a fourplex or a duplex or something like that, they always say like you rent out one of them or you live in one of them and
Hmm.
then the rent pays for, the other things.
Yeah.
Um, and I think that's totally true. I think and I'm not saying that's not a good way to go.
Hmm.
But sometimes you end up being the plumber. You end up being this and that and this and that for
Yeah.
everybody else.
Hmm.
And then it becomes way more of a headache than it ever became
Yeah.
a cash flowing asset. Like
Hmm.
sure, it might be producing cash flow and that's phenomenal. But when you got to deal with all these, crappy tenants and all that stuff, like that's pretty tough. So, I mean, I just think that if you can kind of bite the bullet early,
Yeah.
in your career, and I don't mean bite the bully or the bullet as in,
Hit the boy.
yeah, I, I don't mean that as in, you go, borrow more money than you maybe need to or overpay for a property. What I am saying is maybe you need to, let's just say you got to raise more equity for a property, but that's going to be your first one. And at least you're in one. And now you leverage that property, right? Because when you go buy assets like that, like banks generally want to collateralize the loan. So
Hmm.
they're going to, you're going to use that one property and they're going to use that as collateral. So you can go buy the second one,
Yep.
so it kind of, it builds. But I think that, I think it's a great way to go, but definitely, I mean, there are some good, courses out there.
Hmm.
and maybe you agree, maybe you disagree, but I mean, I think Grant Cardone, like, I think he does put out some good stuff. I mean, I think he probably knows how to look at assets,
Yeah.
right? I mean, he's got a
If
five
I had
billion.
to advise, I would tell people to like read his books before you go
Yeah,
up in his classes. You know, like these guys have a bunch of free content online before you go
yeah,
pay for their courses. See what you can take from, what they put out there for free. I get a book's not free, but if you hop on YouTube, read some of their books, I think that's a huge way to go. Um, one of my mentors, if you're gonna look into, investing in real estate and whatnot,
hmm,
one of my mentors, he probably has, if I had to guess, probably 50 million in, like, that's probably his net worth within real estate.
yep,
Um, he started off, he bought a duplex in Garden Grove, which, do you know where Garden Grove is? Like right next to Huntington.
hmm,
Obviously, this was a long time ago. That he's an older gentleman, great guy. He bought that single. It was either a house or a duplex. Regardless, though, ended up. I think he bought it for 150,000, 2 bed, 2 bath. A year after he bought it, it appreciated to 250,000 or something like that.
yeah,
He sold it, and ever since that day that he sold it, he has been constantly 1031 exchanging every
yeah,
single property he's ever sold. So all he does is he buys a property, hope not hopes, buys a property that cash flows. He's a big cash flow guy now. Um, and if the price is right, he'll say, "Yeah, sure, I'll sell it, take it." And then he just looks for another property to drop that into. But he does all commercial retail now,
hmm,
and mainly it's gonna be he likes fast food
hmm,
because those those places aren't going anywhere.
yeah,
And as long as he keeps their lease at a decent price, they're not going to leave. You know what I
yeah,
mean? And so um, we I've chatted up a bunch with him, and he's like, yeah, I mean the best way to get started in investing is to just you've got to look at 100 deals a day
hmm,
and 50 deals a day, and just do the math on them, and just say like, okay, if I were going to buy this property, what would I need to buy it at for it to become an asset and not a liability? Because I think that's one thing that a lot of people don't understand, especially where I come from. If you're buying a house or a property that's not cash flowing, it's technically a liability to you. You're
hmm,
paying the bank for that asset, right?
yep,
You're not getting paid on that asset. If it's paying you, it's an asset. If it's not paying you and you're forking out of your pocket for it, it's a liability.
right,
Um, Obviously, initial investment, you know, your down payment and whatnot is generally going to come from your own pocket, unless you're have an investor and whatnot. But you get what I'm saying. Where I come from, the big thing is, and everyone asks me this every time I see them. They're like, "Why don't you buy a house? Why haven't you bought a house yet?" And I'm like, "I don't. For one, I don't want a house yet.
I
Unless
don't either.
it, I have found apartment living is so nice.
Yeah, no, I'm being serious.
Private
Like, I've had
is
this
so
conversation.
nice.
Yeah, I've had this conversation a lot. Like, I don't want a house, like, probably until I have like kids. Like,
No,
I don't,
literally. I'm
because I
like
don't want to have to
35,
deal
40
with
years
all of
old.
it. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't want to have to deal. I want everything to be done for me while I'm just grinding and working like freaking 15 to
exactly.
18 hours a day. Like, I don't want to
If
have
I
to
bought
do.
a house right now, the mortgage would take up almost my entire paycheck,
Mhm.
and then I would have to, uh, I'd be doing my own lawn mowing because I wouldn't be able to pay for it. I'd be doing my own sprinklers, and I grew up doing that stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. But it's just like that's time that I don't want to spend doing that. When you're
Mhm.
paying rent, you're paying for a convenience in a way.
Yeah.
If my sink clogs right now, I just go on my app and I say, 7224, my sink clogged, whatever,
Yeah.
help me please. And they send someone out to come unclog it while I'm at work or sitting here working, whatever. And it happens like that. Don't pay a dime. If I own a house, especially going back to, I would say a liability home, that this is a big thing that Robert Kiyosaki, that's his name, right?
Yep.
Kiyosaki.
Yep.
He talks about this, and that's more why I'm bringing it up. If you own a house, it's a liability, right? So you're forking out the money for it. You're not cash flowing or anything, and then you've got to call a plumber, and then the plumber's going to come out and say, you got to replace this or fix that or whatever. And you just spent like $1,200 on your day.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
don't I don't want to deal with that right now.
Yeah. No, I
What
agree. I
what
don't. I
purpose?
don't either.
Yeah. But like I
Um,
said, where I come from, that's like everyone gets a decent job or a good paying job, and the first thing they do is go buy a house.
yeah. I. What was I just gonna say? Totally forgot. But no, basically, like I know what I was gonna say. I haven't done the research myself, but someone that I find very credible. They've got a big research team, and they said based like on statistics right now in the economy, renting, even though rents are high, is cheaper than
Hmm.
buying a home.
Yeah.
So, and people say like, well, you have the equity in your home. It's like, yeah, sure, but what can you do with it?
Right.
Like
Exactly.
what can you can't really do anything with it unless you get like a
Well, until you're 50 years old and you've
yeah,
paid for 75% of your house over the last
yeah.
20
I mean,
years,
yeah,
you know
it's
what I
just like
mean? And
what,
then you can say, okay, I'm going to sell this house because it's appreciated over time. And then what are you going to do with it? Move out of state, build another house, buy
yeah,
another house. Like,
yeah. I was talking to my mom about it too, because like I just want to live like I want to live in a high rise. Like I was telling Mark, remember when we were in San Diego, we were walking down
yeah, on
to
the
the
beach.
yeah.
Well, that was Torrey Pines, right?
No, no, no. When we were walking down to the Swim for Soft evening party,
Oh, gotcha, gotcha.
we're
So
walking through. So I was
we were
talking to
downtown,
Mark,
yeah.
and we're in all the high rises. We're looking at all the high rises. I was like, that's really where I want to live for a long time.
Yeah,
Not a long time, but at least for a while. And I was telling my mom, like, I just don't want to buy. I don't want to buy one of these. Like, I can't see myself
yeah.
doing it. And she was like, totally get it. Like, do the apartment thing, for a while. Do that.
Hmm.
And I mean, if you can deploy the cash and buy like a nice and maybe push the limit a little bit, but like
Yeah.
you can buy a nice like condo in a high rise or something,
Hmm.
just don't ever sell it. Rent
Yeah,
it out when you don't want it anymore.
exactly.
Because people do really like to live like that. And younger people these days, especially in like a good city, wherever like a Newport or a
Hmm.
San Diego, something like that. I mean, still even in LA, and people don't a lot of these younger millennials they don't want to be in a home like
Yeah.
they just don't they want to either rent or they want to
We're
be in
all we're all over the place these days. Like
yeah
everyone's traveling. When are you realistically home? Like I pay to lay my head down here. That's about it.
yeah I
You know?
know
And I'm totally right there with you because when I was mind blown when I moved out to Newport with some of the numbers I was hearing on what people were paying for rent. It's like you're paying 10 grand a month to rent. I'm like,
yeah
what is wrong with you? Why don't you
yeah
go buy a house or something? But I get it. If I were in their shoes and I was making that kind of money, I might do the same thing. Like if I didn't want to deal with the house and I just wanted to live somewhere,
hmm
10 grand's a little excessive. No matter how much I was making, I probably wouldn't go somewhere where I'd be paying 10 grand, but like maybe 5 grand a month. But even that to me when I first came out here, I didn't really understand that lifestyle again because where I come from, it's like everyone's like buy your house. As soon as you can buy a house, get a house. You build equity and it's like, okay, I have now learned it's not a bad way to live. It's a great way to live, but it's not the way I want to live.
yeah yeah no I agree that's how I feel about it so yeah a lot of different methodologies out there and there's a lot of opinions that are good there's a lot of opinions that are not so good.
Yeah.
But honestly, I think you gotta. I mean, if there is somebody with like a public persona out there that you're like, well, I kind of want to be like that guy, and you've done your due diligence, then try the best that you can to listen to the few, not the many, right? Because
For sure.
there's so many opinions out there,
Yeah.
and it ends up kind of being confusing to you. So focus on kind of just set a short term and a long term goal, and just stick to that and work the
Mhm.
system, but. Yeah, no, I mean, I think the point is like a lot of these things that people have historically thought are so out of reach, they're just not. There's a lot of smart entrepreneurs who have, out there who have made these things very accessible to pretty much
Yeah.
everyday people. We talked about Masterworks. We talked about the ability to buy a company. You can be 21, 22 years old. You can make it happen. Like I
Yeah.
have seen it in real time. The company, granted, it wasn't a success, but like we did buy it and I was 24. It was right before my 25th,
Hmm.
birthday. Like that was pretty cool. And we didn't even go through a bank. Didn't even have to borrow any money. Like just got
Right.
super creative. So, but to do that, it takes a lot. I mean, it's, you got to turn over a lot of stones and kiss a lot of frogs to find a prince. So, yeah.
That's true. Um,
Yeah.
Going back, I know because you just reminded me when you brought up Masterworks again. For anyone that wants to look into it, I've personally never used it, but something I've seen is called Fundrise, and it's very similar to what you're talking about,
Hmm.
except for you invest in real estate portfolios.
Oh,
So
nice.
this company essentially, if let's just say 10 of us put 10 grand into this app, they can use that 100,000 to go buy a portfolio or
Hmm.
buy an asset to put in a portfolio, and they then become essentially a property manager and you know almost like a financial advisor, I guess, but um, asset manager is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah.
But yeah, very similar to what you were talking about, but with the real estate portfolio. So if anyone wants to check that out, it's called Fundrise, Fundrise.
Yeah, awesome. And just to be clear, to every single person who will listen to this today, tomorrow, or 5 years from now, we are not giving anybody financial advice. That's a disclaimer. We are
You
not
know
giving
what?
a
Yes.
single person financial advice. Do not take this as financial
Not,
advice. Make your own decisions because we are not here to make them for
no,
you.
neither of us are professionals. We're not trained professionals. We are not sponsored by anyone that we've mentioned or
Not formally
anything.
trained,
Yep.
nothing. No licensing,
Nope.
nothing. So,
I actually don't have a single penny to my name, but
yeah. Yeah. Um, I launder money. No, I'm kidding. Totally kidding. No. So,
all right.
no, if there's a
I think the
attorney out,
IRS is knocking on my door. I'll see you in a little bit.
yeah, no, if there is any attorney out there that listens to this in the future, just know that we got you by the balls because I want to be clear that we are not giving anyone
This is not financial
financial
advice.
advice. This is simply dialogue between two friends, and it should not be
Did
taken
we make
or
that clear?
perceived.
Did we make it clear that this is not financial advice?
Yeah, yeah, and we are not giving any financial advice.
Right.
So, bam.
Uh, all right. Does that about wrap us up today?
Yeah, be careful out there and play to
Train
win.
hard, be
Play not to lose.
diligent.
Yeah, play to win. Don't play not to lose.
Bingo. Unless you want to play to not to lose, that's fine too.
Yeah, but either way, we're not giving advice.
But if you want to get after it, play to win.
Yeah, but
Uh,
you're just telling me that. You're not telling anybody else that.
yeah, no, I'm just talking to Spencer here. I'm thinking out loud is what we call it.
Sure, got it. There is even a chance that we're muted right now, so maybe nobody can hear.
That would be hilarious. The advice I will give, where I was going, was train hard, be
Yep.
diligent, be cognizant of your surroundings, and read a book.
Yeah. Yep. Find a mentor.
There you go.
Yeah. Cool. Alrighty.
All right.
Money, 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 money.
Episode 13. That would be a fun outro,
Well, maybe we can do that.
huh? Episode 13, shaken, not stirred. Keep it,
Shaken.
not stirred, baby.
Hold on. Stop.
I totally
Just
know.
a
Oh,
second.
are you gonna do it?
No, no, no. I'm not actually. I'm
Oh,
trying to find something else. Gotta give me a second. Hold on.
well, while Spencer's doing that, I'm gonna go to work and then do a semi-celebration of my birthday after work. So.
Nice. All right. Quiet. Let's go sideways. Yeah, there we go.
I don't know where this is going.
Said, I've lost my mind on this game, like Vincent van Gogh dedicated his life
Look at
to
him.
his and he lost his mind in the process. That's happened to me. But fuck it. When that gold belt is around my waist and my mother has a big mansion, my girlfriend has a car for every day of the week, and my kids' kids get everything they ever wanted, then they will pay. Then I'll be happy I lost my mind. Can you just reflect and talk to me about how that makes you feel hearing that in 2021?
You know, yeah, it's been some ride. I've got it done, and I'm up here, mad as a brush. Do it all, my friend. You know, I appreciate that, and it's been a wild ride for me. It's not been easy at times, but you know, what a life! And I tell you what, I wouldn't want it to be any other way.
I wanted to be
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
And we'll end it on that.
Yes.
All right. Keep it shaking, everybody.
Not stirred. Peace.
Deuces.